All right, so hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Evolution, Unit 8, Day 6. And today we're going to talk about how do we use anatomical evidence to support evolution. And before we get started, let's just remember our most basic definition here. Evolution is change. Ooh, oh. Change over time. All right, I'm going to try to make this video quick for you guys, so hopefully it doesn't feel like I'm rushing because I know the videos have been long lately. All right, so forgive this question, how it's written on here on your paper, it's typed out, but on Earth, we have uncovered many fossils of animals that are no longer alive. How is this evidence for evolution? So go ahead and pause this video and take a moment to answer that question. And hopefully you paused the video and gave your rationale, but this is evidence for evolution because this demonstrates species have changed over time. We can examine these species from the past by looking at their fossils, and we can see evidence that they are related to the species that are alive on Earth today, but they have changed. They are different. So this gives us evidence that species change over time or species evolve. We're going to look at how they evolve in today's notes and also when we conduct one of my favorite labs during this unit, beaks of finches. All right, so part A, these are just some notes, anatomical evidence notes. So number 1, the first blank, anatomical record, which means comparing body structures, comparing the anatomy of different organisms to see how closely related they are, to determine if this is evidence that these species are related. They come from maybe a common ancestor, or we have found an ancestor, but we can observe this change over time. The molecular record, which allows us to compare protein, DNA sequences, amino acid sequences, and see the relationships between species over time. The fossil record, which literally shows us sometimes the anatomy, but also the actual rock that is around, that the bones have turned into the rock. All of these things are evidence supporting evolution. And last, we have artificial selection, which this is actually important because this allows us to observe how evolution happens because we're controlling it. So those are your 4 blanks. Next, the anatomical record tells us that animals with different structures on the surface, but when you look under the skin, it tells the evolutionary story of common ancestors. That's homologous structures. On your picture, there's an image here showing different bones of different mammal species and how we have the same bones in our hands, even though for whales, for example, those hands are now fins. For bats, those hands are wings. For many animals, they're paws. But for humans, we have our hands, and there's actually the same bones in many of our mammalian relatives. And again, compare the bones. The same bones lie underneath the skin, and limbs that perform different functions are built from the same bones. This is homologous structures. How could these very different animals have the same bones? Again, this is evidence for evolution because it shows us that we evolved from a common ancestor that had those bones, and now we all do our different jobs. We fulfill our different roles with the same bones. So homologous structures, again, remember that homo means same. We've talked about this word several times. And homologous means it has the same information or structures from the same origin. The forelimbs of humans, cats, whales, and bats. So our hands, paws of cats, whales, fins, and bats' wings all have the same structure on the inside, and we also have the same development in the embryo. So we can call that comparative embryology, which you may remember from day 5 notes. So analogous structures. These look similar on the outside and they have the same function, but different structure and development on the inside. So not evolved from a common ancestor. Can you tell I'm getting familiar with the new technology? Sorry. So there's no evolutionary relationship. There's a different origin, but they may look similar or fulfill a similar role. For example, bats that are mammals and fly, and insects that can fly as well. They both have wings, but their wings are very different. They evolve from very different ancestry. So mimicry. Why do dolphins, aquatic mammals, and fish, aquatic vertebrate, look so similar? They had similar problems, right? They live in a similar environment. They both live in water, and they have the same solution. They both live in water, similar problem, similar solution, but they evolved from different ancestors, right? So dolphins are mammals, but fish are also vertebrates. They also have backbones, but they are not mammalian. So environment is very important to evolution. What is convergent evolution and what does it mean? Convergent evolution is when animals have analogous structures. So they look the same, but they have different organs and different origins. They converged to be very similar, right? They came in from different places to be very similar, but they actually come from different origins. There's also divergent evolution, which would be like humans, for example, and chimpanzees, that we came from a common ancestor, but at some point we both split off and we developed into our current forms separate from each other. So convergent, different origins come together to be similar. Divergent, same origins separate to be different. Why would whales have pelvis and leg bones if they were always sea creatures? Well, whales evolved from a common land mammal ancestor. So at some point back in their evolutionary past, the ancestors of whales were land mammals, and that is why they have pelvis and leg bones. So let's move on here. So for this part, there is a link to a YouTube video on your document. Please go ahead, click that link, pause this video and watch that video, and then come back. So hopefully you paused this video and you watched the whale video talking about the theory of whale evolution. Based off this video, identify at least 3 pieces of evidence that suggest the evolution of whales from land mammals. So what were 3 pieces of evidence that suggest the evolution of whales from land mammals? It's a pretty good video, so I hope you watched it. We have anatomical evidence that shows that whales evolved from a common land ancestor that did walk on land, unlike whales. We have the fossil record that actually shows these ancient whale ancestors, and we have geological evidence. So we have these whale ancestors, their skeletons, their fossils are found in places that we know based on the geology used to be land. And we can track that over time in the fossil record. And we can also look at modern day whales and see that they have pelvis bones, even though they no longer walk on land, they no longer stand upright. All right, so part C, I think I did go through this one fast. So let's finish out the last 2 questions here. 10 breeding pairs of rabbits are introduced onto an island with no natural predators and a good supply of water and food. What will most likely happen to the rabbit population? It will remain relatively constant due to equal birth and death rates. It will die out due to the increase in the mutation rate. It will increase until it exceeds carrying capacity, or it will decrease, and then increase indefinitely. So it will increase until it exceeds carrying capacity. Carrying capacity, this is an ecology term. We're going to talk about more in our next unit, but carrying capacity has to do with the maximum number of organisms an environment can support. And then after that, they start to die because there's not enough resources to support them in that environment. Okay, last question. Base your answer to the following question on the scatter plot graph below and on your knowledge of biology. The graph shows changes in the percentage of vancomycin resistant bacteria in a population between the years 1983 and 2001. And the question asks, explain why the percentage of resistant bacteria increased over time. Well, we know that evolution happens over time. And here, hold on. There we go. It increased because the resistant bacteria survived, right? And that resistance became an adaptation to these bacteria in this environment where they were being presented with antibiotics, this vancomycin, and these resistant bacteria were the ones that survived to reproduce, and they were then chosen as the new version of this bacteria, and potentially could even become a different species of bacteria. But right now they're in between being a different species because right now they're just the resistant vancomycin. All right, that is all I have for you today. Go ahead and complete your exit ticket. We looked at how geological and anatomical evidence can be used to support evolution. Have a super fantastic day, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow, whenever is the next time on Zoom. Oh boy, it's been a rough week, huh? Bye, guys.